You're listening to the Mind Over Finger podcast, episode number 33, the third of this 5-episode series discussing the Fischoff Effect.
Welcome to the Mind Over Finger podcast, discussions on mindful music making, efficient practice, and building a purposeful career. And now, your host, Dr. Renee Paul Gauthier.
Hi, everyone. I hope it's a wonderful day for you so far. As you might know, if you've listened to the 2 previous conversations, I will be on site at University of Notre Dame as one of the official podcasters covering the 46th annual Fischoff competition from May 10 to 12. And this week, I'm bringing you 5 former winners of the competition to talk about their experience preparing for the performances and competing at Fischoff, and about the wonderful adventures and opportunities that have followed their win. In this series, you will hear all about the Fischoff Effect with my guests Blaise Magniere from the Avalon String Quartet, Dorival Puccini from Axiom Brass, Matt Landry from the Akropolis Reed Quintet, Christopher Whitley from the Thalea String Quartet, and Lydia Reah from the former Kairos String Quartet. Whether you're a musician about to compete at the competition or a music lover looking for a fresh approach to practicing and preparing for a concert, make sure to subscribe and tune in every day because those conversations are bursting with inspiration and extremely useful information. Each group has a unique and motivating story, and my guests are so generous with their insightful tips and advice. So let's dive in with today's guest, Matt Landry from the Akropolis Reed Quintet. Let's go to the show. Matt Landry, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it'll be fun. I appreciate it.
Matt, I would love to know more about you and about Akropolis. So can we start by hearing about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Akropolis formed at the University of Michigan in 2009. And so this is our 10th year together. And it's been a long journey. The Fischoff competition has been a really important part of the journey, but we started as a student group, just kind of playing the music we enjoyed playing, and then getting into some creative projects like doing commissions, and we were even still students when we recorded our first CD. And then just a couple years after we started and we were all together, the group started the individual members started going off in different places geographically. Tim, our oboist, was the first one to leave to go off to do grad school at Yale. And then Ryan ended up doing his doctorate at Florida State. And so really for almost the entire time we've been together, we've been in different places. But we, from the beginning, wanted to find something that would sort of magnetize us, if you will. And so really the core of what we've always been is a group that likes to just innovate, chamber music in some way or another. And mainly, of course, we do that by being a reed quintet, just sort of existing as a reed quintet in the world. And then, of course, we also do that by putting recordings out. We sell sheet music. We do tons and tons of educational outreach, kindergarten all the way through college, playing concerts, doing different collaborations with different kinds of artists and all those kinds of things. So the journey started then through a number of competitions and of course, including Fischoff. We sort of started to gain notoriety. In 2013, we started being managed by Aerial Artists. It's a wonderful booking agent in Boston, and that was a big moment for us as well. Since then, a little over 4 years ago, we became a nonprofit, and so we incorporated, kind of did it the long way. And really started building the foundation for our long-term organization, which is Akropolis Quintet Inc., basically Akropolis Reed Quintet, but just a little more official. And I am now the executive director and the saxophonist of the group, so executive director of the nonprofit and a saxophonist in the ensemble, of course. And that brings us to today. And these days, any given season, we usually have about 40 to 50 sort of formal recitals, as you would think of them. And then anywhere from like 50 to 100 different events that are educational or just sort of community outreach oriented. So that kind of brings us to where we are today.
That's a wonderful schedule.
Yeah, indeed. It's a little bit busier maybe than we ever anticipated it would be, and a lot of schedule acrobatics and a lot of very advanced planning and a lot going on. But it's I think right now we're in a really good groove, and we like everything we're doing, and we like where it is. So.
This is great. And Matt, would you tell us a little bit about how Acropolis went about to prepare for Fischoff competition, the rehearsal process, and all of the things that went into this preparation for a major competition like Fischoff?
Sure. Well, we went to Fischoff 3 times. So we have 3 different experiences with the competition, and each one we prepared for, I think, slightly differently. Each one we prepared for, I think, better and a little more intensely and with even more focus and with even more purpose, I think. The first time in 2010, we had hardly been a group for very long. We did manage to make the semifinals, which was a great accomplishment for us at the time. And so the first one was just a learning experience. We just in about 7 or 8 months prepared the music the best we could, got a lot of coachings with our faculty members at the University of Michigan who were and still are very wonderful supporters of us. And we kind of, I would say that we did a few things, quote unquote, wrong. I think we didn't manage our time as well as we could have in terms of like giving ourselves free time, in terms of not kind of burning ourselves out, right? In terms of sort of spacing out our travel and such so that we could have, some time to rest and relax and stuff. But we really had a great time just coming to the competition and learning. In 2012, we won the silver medal, which was a big step up for us and really meant a lot. And it was really motivating for us to try to come back for a third time and win the gold medal, which we did in 2014. By the time 2013, or really immediately after 2012, when we almost won the gold medal, came around, we started thinking about what is going to be the difference for us. This very small but really big difference between groups that do well at the competition and the groups that win the competition, right? And it's the same fine margins that separate groups that are very close to having fully fledged professional careers and those that don't, or that can't quite get all the way. And so we started thinking about what are those differences and what do we need to do to get there. So from 2012 to 14 for us was really centrally focused on going back and doing better at the competition. So we decided to memorize all of our music. So we memorized a little over 60 minutes of repertoire. It was the first time we had done anything like that. And actually, for both years we were preparing, Tim, like I mentioned, was still away at grad school. So we spent most of the time preparing for the 2014 competition with 4 people. And we memorized the music with 4 people, and we would plug Tim in over the internet. He would kind of just listen and do his best to play along. And we just put as much time as possible into spending time together. And the individual time it took to memorize that music was, I think, really what got us to the next level in terms of being able to understand the whole piece and everybody's parts and everybody's music and give a really, really polished presentation. And the benefit of all of that is that moment for us of winning the gold medal in 2014 became a really seminal moment that formed kind of the real artistic identity for us, the real kind of standard by which we have held ourselves since. And we've continued to improve since the competition. But that was sort of where we, I think, made the most improvement in any given amount of time, was getting up to that 2014 competition. Some other things that we did to prepare, we performed our music in sort of a concert setting for people as much as we could. We got a lot of coachings. We had sort of mock competitions where we would have people call out repertoire for us to perform. And we gave ourselves really, really strict deadlines. So, by this time, everybody has to have the music memorized. By this point, by this specific time, we have to be able to perform it all, quote unquote, really well, right? And that gives us enough time to make even more refinements. So I would say we took it incredibly seriously, and we were incredibly motivated to do well. And so I think those made the biggest difference for us.
This is really wonderful. I love that you use the word focus and purpose. And I think that your story illustrates so well how you can learn from past experiences and, reach such a high level of success by knowing how to bridge that gap between where you are and where you want to be, to get to the next level. This is so great. And I love how you say that this really helped you establish the standards that you hold yourself up to today. This is a perfect example of establishing a clear plan of action and implementing strategies. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, of course. That's good to hear.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the experience during the competition itself?
Yeah, well, there's an experience for the ensemble as a whole in a chamber music competition or in any performance, right? There's sort of what can be gleaned as the collective experience of the group, right? Which is difficult to figure out. But then there's also the individual experience of all the members, and everyone from a duo to any size chamber music group has to negotiate the way that all different members with different experiences and different comforts about different things feels at one time. So my reaction to most performances is to be relatively relaxed. My reaction to Fischoff was always to be incredibly, incredibly nervous, and almost, I mean, to the point where I would have trouble eating, I wouldn't sleep, everything, up until we would go on stage, in which case I sort of flip around and I become a bit cooler, and a bit more able to sort of arrive at the situation and not be overdone by it in a way. Some members of the group are sort of the opposite. Some are kind of in the middle. But what we tried to do as a group was just let our collective energy and all the work that we had done to get to that point come together and just really try to enjoy ourselves. So in the moment, competitions can be difficult to enjoy. But what I would recommend and what I would say is that when you're finished with competitions and when you look back on them, whether you do well, quote unquote, or not, they will end up being some of the most important and most memorable things you ever do in your life. Remembering that even getting invited to the live rounds of any of these competitions is a feat. So many groups apply, so many groups send in tapes. Just to be able to go is a big deal. Having that kind of perspective really helps you get through the rigor of how difficult these competitions can be. So Fischoff for us, I think like it is for most groups, it was just a combination of nerves and stress, but just like, adrenaline and joy, all at the same time. The best part of any competition is just going and being able to show off what you do. And that's the stuff that we remember the most. But we certainly tried to have a good time. We really tried to use our downtime and go do fun activities and, all that kind of stuff when we did get a chance. But for me, honestly, the overwhelming emotion when I think of Fischoff and all the competitions we've done is kind of a balancing of like dread and joy, just because I know how nervous I would get and I know how high stakes things would be. And it's sort of that I now measure my emotions and try to maintain my poise when we do all sorts of concerts. So there's sort of a scale now as to how high stakes things are, right? And that brings out different levels of nerves and energy before a concert. And competitions, especially Fischoff, for me, have always been at the top of that sort of litmus scale, if you will. So a combination of all those things is sort of what it's like going to these competitions. I would also say that Fischoff especially is incredibly competitive. There's no doubt about that, but it's sort of collaborative among the artists. There's sort of a collective sense of being there to all promote this great idea of how great chamber music is and trying to push each other. I think artists push each other at the competition in the moment, but also from year to year as the quality of groups continues to improve and the standards and continue to evolve and new ideas start to be put into competitions, new kinds of groups, like when Akropolis showed up and was the first Reed Quintet, ever to go to Fischoff, these new things continue to evolve. So there's a good sense of partnership, I think, among the ensembles that go there as well, which is kind of a fun energy to have as well.
Did you have any personal strategies or approach to tackle this stress that you're talking about?
Oh man, I wish I could say that I had something in the moment, right? That when you're dealing with a really stressful musical performance of some kind, right? That in the moment I could sort of just give out there and prescribe. I was personally, and still to this day, I'm not ever really able to come up with anything in the moment other than whatever and everything that you do leading up to the moment is what gives you the ability to overcome it. Being as prepared as possible, having trust in the people that you're performing with, and I think more than anything, making sure that everyone you're performing with has deep trust and respect in you, and that you have the same trust and respect in them, so that you're not nervous about that you're going to mess something up. You're not nervous that you're going to be the weak link in a performance or something like that, because you know that at the end of the day, everyone is gonna love and appreciate you and your artistry. And Akropolis always had that established. Instead, what we would get nervous about is just the occasion, just how badly we wanted to succeed. And those kind of nerves are okay. And when you get into the performance, I think you can deal with those. The nerves of worry that you're going to make a mistake, or worry that you're going to be the downfall of success or something like that, are nerves that, in my opinion, you have to handle long before the competition and long before the performance. You have to talk about that as a group. You have to talk about how everyone's important, and how no one thing, is going to be the result of doing poorly or badly, and that takes the pressure off of the individuals, I think. And so that was really helpful. So I couldn't really do anything to get rid of the stomach, butterflies, and that physical issue that you go into when you're in these really stressful situations. But I think I was able to overcome them, and all 5 members were able to overcome them because of that positive group dynamic that we had. So I hope that's helpful, and that's really the best kind of firsthand advice that I can give.
It's very wise advice. Thank you. And Matt, do you have a favorite memory attached to Fischoff?
Well, I think the easiest favorite memory is sort of like, being announced as as a gold medalist. But in Fischoff, in Notre Dame, Indiana, where the university is, and where Fischoff is, as long as it's still there, which I hope it is, there's a bar called O'Rourke's, and it's just kind of this Irish pub that's right across the street from the competition. And we went back to South Bend for the the gold medal tour. We went back to South Bend for the Fischoff Educator Tour when we won the Fischoff Educator Award. And we sort of made a habit, sort of a joke almost, but we kind of took it seriously, of going to O'Rourke's as many times as humanly possible. So I think we've probably been there like 20 times. It's no joke. I think the people in there thought that we lived in the area, even though we didn't. And I'm not sure if it was the beer or the food or what it was. I think Andrew particularly liked the mozzarella sticks. But it was just something about how it was just a comforting place for us, sort of, right, amidst all this. And there's tons and tons of good memories. But honestly, I think the one that we all kind of, you'd say, if word association, right, like Fischoff, we'd all just be like O'Rourke's, right? I don't know why. So anybody who's gone to the competition knows that place, I'm sure. And you might even hear the same thing if you ask another group. But we kind of made it a sort of hilarious recurring theme to go back there. So I'll give that one as my best memory.
And Matt, what has the competition brought to your group? How did it change your life?
Well, there is the sort of, there's a thing that Fischoff, does to you as an ensemble that's difficult to categorize and it's difficult to quantify, which is the prestige that it brings you. People look at the competition, people attend the competition, they look for groups they want to manage, or groups they want to book, or groups they might want to promote. And so to what degree Fischoff helped Akropolis in that way, we can certainly say that it did. It's really hard to figure out as how much it did, but we know that it did to a degree. We know that it directly resulted in some people taking a look at us for bringing us out to their series. We know that our manager knows what Fischoff is, and everybody looks at people who win Fischoff to kind of help out and for groups that are going to be doing great things in the future. But honestly, for Akropolis, the biggest thing that Fischoff did was just give us confidence. It taught us that we had what we were doing had artistic value. Still to this day, we're the only Reed Quintet in America that has a regular, full-time touring schedule. My wife and I run the nonprofit and run the organization, the ensemble, full-time. We're the only Reed Quintet in the country that has anybody working full-time for the group. And Fischoff was the first competition to give us that substantial legitimacy and really take us seriously. So in the public and to all those players in the music world, that was important. But to us, it was even more important. Had no one even come and recognized that we were at Fischoff, it still would have had a great impact on our career. We still, as a group, would have been able to say, we are capable of great things. We just need to keep on the path and continue to promote ourselves and do all the music business related things that we needed to do as a group to be successful. Without Fischoff, it would have been quite a lot more difficult. We would have had to find another way to satisfy that urge of making sure that we knew that people valued what we did and that it was artistically relevant and that we were good enough, frankly. And Fischoff, because of the artistic standards it makes you aspire to and achieve, and the rigor of it and everything, and frankly the fairness of it and the organized nature of it and everything, leads you to really just taking hold of such a high amount of respect and regard for yourself that lasts for years and years. I mean, we still sort of feel some of those effects now as a group in bringing us together. So frankly, as an ensemble, if you're looking to go to these major competitions, and especially Fischoff, that's the effect that you should be looking to achieve. Building your own sense of self-worth as a musician and purpose and value to what you're doing. If you're going strictly because you want to get a manager or you want to get gigs or you want to get booked, there's absolutely no guarantee that any of those things are going to work out, no matter how well you do, right? So that's kind of the way that we've approached it, and that's been the biggest impact on us for sure.
And you've already given us some great tips, but do you have any additional advice for the young musicians that are about to perform at the competition?
Yeah, well, a lot of the advice, and so this is for groups that are going to go to the competition now, but also since I know we'll have a lot of groups that want to go in the future, I'll start with a little bit of advice for groups that will be thinking about Fischoff next year, right? So not in the immediate. And one of the things that made the biggest difference for Akropolis is, first of all, just preparing as far in advance as possible, setting a goal a year and a half or 2 years out, setting a long-term goal for going toward the competition. Secondly, in terms of like repertoire, in terms of the programs that you choose, choosing repertoire that isn't the repertoire that you think judges want to hear, but is the music that you are your absolute best at, the music that shows you off and that represents you and that you care most deeply about. That, honestly, for Akropolis was the biggest difference maker between our semifinal year, our silver medal year, and our gold medal year, was moving from about half and half arranged to original repertoire. As a reed quintet, if you're not going to play arranged repertoire, you're stuck to about the last 20 or 30 years of music, right? So when we moved into the gold medal year, we did almost entirely original reed quintet repertoire, most of it from the last 3 or 4 years. Some of it we commissioned ourselves, right? And the judges actually saw more value in that, and they saw more of Akropolis shining through, more of our artistry. A lot of groups will probably think if we don't play Mozart or Beethoven or Bartok or something like this, how are we going to show artistry? There is so much artistry in all kinds of music. It's a question of what are you most comfortable with and what makes you shine. Maybe you need second opinions on that. Maybe you need to do a lot of recording of yourself, right, to understand how you sound best. But choosing that music is, I think, apart from actually preparing the music, the most critical thing you do in preparing for competitions. So to the groups that are going to be going soon, the groups that are kind of finalizing their preparation now, I just mentioned recording. I would do some mock performances and get some really good microphones, the best that you can, and record yourself and listen back. You will hear things from outside of the ensemble, from outside of your own position in the group, in a way that you just won't be able to. And listen to those recordings with great criticism, self-criticism, and that's really the only way to understand what the audience is going to be hearing. Get as many coachings as you can. It sounds really simple, but that was really big for us. And I think sit down as a group, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, but sit down as a group and talk about what do you hope to achieve, and come up with a group consensus. Why are we doing this? What do we hope this will bring us? And why did we decide we were going to do this in the first place? What results are we hoping for? If we don't achieve those results, how are we going to react? And if we do, how can we use them, moving forward? those conversations can be just as important as, sitting down and rehearsing and playing music. Develop that rapport and that trust with each other, and that will make competing in the competition, a lot easier, and a lot more fulfilling, I think. So.
Matt, this is such great advice. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I find Akropolis' mission so wonderful. You guys are such a vibrant ensemble, and your online presence is so dynamic. I'm going to put all of this information in the show notes, but can you tell our listeners where they could find you and engage with you?
Sure, sure. Well, since this is a competition for young artists, Facebook is probably the first place people will think to go. So if you get on Facebook, it's Akropolis with a K, Akropolis, Reed Quintet, Reed as in like the oboe. Akropolis Reed Quintet, you'll find us on Facebook, no problem. There's also our website, akropolisquintet.org. And we also have a killer Instagram as well. I think those would probably be the top three places to find us. We do a lot of work with young musicians and musicians at the high school and collegiate level. And if you shoot us a note or a Facebook message or an email or anything like that, we always respond. If anybody wants any advice on anything regarding competitions or beyond, you can find us, but you can also interact with us, and we'll give you as much help as we can.
This is great. And I think that a lot of young musicians should take advantage of getting in touch with you and maybe getting some coachings from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do tons of it. I think because our journey as a group has been so unorthodox and has been such a sort of steady, grind from that first day 10 years ago when we formed. We have just a lot in our hearts that wants to find groups like us that are ready to go on that journey. They're ready to put in the time and the hard work that it takes, but they just simply need a little push, or they need a little bit of security, or a little bit of confidence, or just a little bit of advice. Again, because of the journey that we've been on, we just have a lot of respect for that, and a lot of room and time for students who are ready for that. So we're very open to that, and we do quite a lot of that mentorship. So.
Matt, you and Akropolis are such wonderful advocates for chamber music. Thank you so much again for being on the show.
Oh, thanks, Renee, for all you do as well. And good luck to everybody out there competing.
Thank you for listening. I hope this conversation brought you inspiration and great value. As always, you can visit mindoverfinger.com for the show notes, which have more information about the competition and today's guest. And I'd love to hear from you, so take a screenshot of the episode, share on Instagram, and tag me at mindoverfinger. Tag the Akropolis Quintet at Akropolis spelled with a K, the number 5, and the letters TET. And also tag the Fischoff competition at Fischoff Chamber Music. And use the hashtag Fischoff 2019 so we can see that you're listening. We can share it on our stories, and we can give you some love. To join in the experience and follow the competition, visit fischoff.org and visit their Facebook page at facebook.com/thefischoff to get more info on the live streaming of the performances and, of course, the results. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back tomorrow for more Fischoff Insight.